Are you wondering how to use Rome's public transportation system? Where to buy tickets, how much they cost, how Tap and Go works, and how to figure out which bus or metro to take to get where you want to go? I'm guessing you probably also want to know how to avoid getting pickpocketed. I'm a big fan of Rome's public transportation system, and I use it a lot. And after nearly 25 years of living in Rome, I've become quite the expert on the ins and outs of the public transportation system here in Rome. And on today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you all of my tips and tricks for using public transportation in Rome. As for walking in Rome, you may want to check out my playlist where I have a bunch of videos with walking itineraries in Rome. And as for using a taxi or Uber in Rome, I did a dedicated video about this, so you can watch that if you want more details about using taxis in Rome. On today's video, I'm going to be focusing on how to use the bus and the metro. We do have a tram system with 6 lines, but it's much less common, so we're mostly going to be focusing on the bus and the metro to get around Rome. And stick around, because you're not going to want to miss my number 1 tip that will make using Rome's public transportation system stress-free. First, why would you want to use public transportation, and when would you use it? Rome's historic center is pretty compact, and it can be fairly easy to walk between many of the must-see sites. For example, it takes about 5 minutes to walk from the Trevi Fountain to the Pantheon, and about 3 minutes to walk from the Pantheon to Piazza Navona. But both the Colosseum and the Vatican, arguably 2 of Rome's most popular sites, are just a little bit far from the historic center when it comes to walking. It's not that these sites are not within walking distance from the historic center. They definitely are. But, there are a lot of factors that could affect whether you want to walk or take public transportation. It might be pouring rain, or super hot, or freezing. You might be trying to fit in a lot of sites in one day, and using public transportation can help you fit in more sites than if you walk between them. And while I am a big fan of staying in the center of Rome so that you really have everything at your fingertips, it's become very common now for people to stay considerably outside of Rome city center. You might be looking to stay in a little bit more of a local neighborhood, or maybe you want some more green space or someplace with a pool. Or cost may be a factor. Sometimes you get a lot more for your money the further away from the historic center you stay. Either way, you're going to want to know how to get around. Rome's public transportation is run by ATAC. ATAC stands for Azienda Tramvie ed Autobus del Comune di Roma. When you first land on the ATAC website, it's going to be in Italian, but you can switch to English. Just know that certain parts of the ATAC website are only available in Italian. Specifically, news about outages or strikes or some other news is only going to be found in the Italian version of the ATAC website. ATAC is complemented in certain areas of the city by COTRAL. COTRAL stands for Compagnia Trasporti Laziali, and they're a private company that offers bus and overground train services. Sometimes, to get where you need to go, you're going to take a metro or a bus to a certain point, get off, and switch to a COTRAL bus or train using the same ticket. For example, one way to get to the Ciampino airport is to take the metro all the way to Anagnina and switch to the COTRAL bus, although I think this is the least efficient way to get to that airport. Another great example of combining the COTRAL system with one of Rome's public transportation systems is to use the COTRAL train from either the Piramide or San Paolo metro stops to go all the way out to the ruins at Ostia Antica or to Ostia Beach. A great way to get a handle on what all the different metro and tram lines are and how the COTRAL and regional trains connect to them is to visit the ATAC website and go to the Maps page. I really love the well laid out and easy to read map that they have of all of the metro lines and all of the corresponding COTRAL trains and regional trains, so you can really get a sense of all the different places you can go, not just in the center of Rome, but even just a bit beyond. While Rome's public transportation system is pretty extensive, it's not possible to use it on its own to get to either of Rome's airports. Getting between Rome and our two airports would be the subject of another video, but I'm just going to share very quickly because I know you'll ask me in the comments. Besides taking a taxi, probably the easiest and most straightforward way to get between Rome and Ciampino Airport is using the TerraVision or SIT bus. I'll put a link to those buses in the description below. And where Fiumicino Airport is concerned, I did a video about getting from Fiumicino into Rome using the Leonardo Express, so you can check that out if you want more details. Now back to the subject of this video, which is how to use public transportation to get around Rome. So we have three types of public transportation in Rome: the bus, the metro, and the tram. While the metro is a pretty popular form of transportation for Romans, there are actually only 3 lines. As a tourist, you're likely to use the red line or the blue line most often. The red line has stops such as Barberini, which is where you can get off to visit the Trevi Fountain, Spagna, where you can get off to visit the Spanish Steps, and Ottaviano and Cipro, which are 2 stops near the Vatican. Where tourists are concerned, the Blue Line B is probably best known for the Colosseum and Circus Maximus stops. Termini Station, Rome's main train station, is where the blue line and red lines meet and where you can change lines if you need to. The word metro stands for metropolitana, and it's Rome's underground system, although it does sometimes go above ground as well. The metro system is a little bit limited because if they need to dig to make the metro, you can imagine what happens every time they dig, right? You guys, in Rome, we have an entire city beneath our feet, ready to be excavated. So anytime they have metro projects, they take years, and usually they go many years beyond their projected dates because they keep finding things. With that said, there is currently a huge project to create new metro stops in Rome. These stops are part of a new green line that's being built. It's been partially built, but the current stops that they're working on are all concentrated around the Colosseum. There is going to be a new stop at the Colosseum. Yes, we have a metro stop currently at the Colosseum, but they're making a new metro stop there, and it is going to be pretty amazing, I think. This metro stop is actually scheduled to open in 2025. The next metro stop on this line that they're working on is the one in Piazza Venezia. That's the reason for these huge structures that you're seeing that are vexing tourists and Romans alike. This project is not due to be completed for another 10 years, so I think we just have to learn to live with these renovations in Piazza Venezia for the near future. But as I said, the metro system is limited, which is where the bus system comes into play. Here are a couple of quick tips for riding the metro in Rome. You can usually find metro stops on the street by looking for the big M. Many metro stations have several entrances and they also have several exits. So when you're entering a metro station, it really doesn't matter. Just find the one closest to you. When you're exiting, you might find that you're sort of across the street or catty corner from where you want to be. So you'll either have to cross above ground or go back down into the metro and get over to the exit where you want to go. And unless you're at the end of the line, any metro stop is going to have trains going in 2 directions, so you have to figure out how to get to the correct track to go in the direction that you want to go. The easiest way to do this is to look for the signs that tell you what the upcoming stops are. So just look on the sign and find the stop you want, and that will be the train you need to take. Sometimes you'll see people running to catch a metro train. These are usually locals because they have somewhere to go, they're in a rush, and they're trying to get whatever train they hear is coming, so they're running down the stairs. Don't worry too much about this. The metro trains run about every 3 to 5 minutes, so if you didn't catch the one that's in the station right now, there will be another one pretty soon. In fact, if there's a train in the station and it's leaving, I never rush to catch it because I want to take my time to position myself for where I want to be when the train comes. And that position is at either end of the platform. So all the way to one end where I might wind up at the back of the train, or all the way to the other end where I might wind up at the front of the train. Either way, the ends are where you're going to have the fewest people on the train when you board. Sometimes the metro trains can be pretty packed even at the ends during peak moments of the day, like rush hour. Even so, if you're at one of the ends, it's going to be less crowded for you than the middle, which is going to be packed like sardines. One obvious reason for wanting to be on one of the ends and in a car with fewer people is just to have a little bit of breathing room and possibly even a seat. Another obvious reason for wanting to be on one of the ends and around fewer people is because I reduce my chances of being pickpocketed. If I do get a seat on the metro, I bring my backpack around the front and I put it in my lap and I just hold on to it. If I have to stand on the metro, I look for a spare wall somewhere and I lean up against it with my backpack against the wall. Then, once I've positioned myself, I just take a look around me and notice who's around me and what they're doing. If I decide to check my phone while I'm standing up on the metro, I still look up and around me every couple of minutes, and I definitely stop what I'm doing the minute the train stops at a station and people are getting on and off. I pay close attention to my belongings. I keep my back up against the wall. And guys, nothing's ever happened to me. And by looking up and taking note of my surroundings, I'm also letting a potential pickpocketer know that I am aware of my surroundings, I'm aware of who's around me, and I might be a little bit less of a good target for them. Then, when the train stops, I just hop off onto the platform and I wait. Remember, I'm at one end of the platform because of where I got on in the beginning, and so I just wait for everybody to go ahead of me, and I'm the last one to leave. This doesn't take long. We're talking about a matter of 1 to 2 minutes. And then being the last one to leave means I have nobody behind me. When I get to the escalators, I'm also the last one to ride up on the escalator. I see people riding these escalators up to get out of the metro, and they're really close together. They've got their backpacks on, and they're typically on their phones. I mean, aren't we all? But, being unaware means that you become a likely target for a pickpocket. Most metro stops have escalators or elevators. If you need or want an escalator or an elevator and you're getting out of the metro station and you come to a set of stairs, just look around for a different exit. At the time I'm making this video for you, there are 4 stations in Rome that do not have any escalator or lift. On the Red Line, the Repubblica, Barberini, and Spagna are 3 stations, one right after the other, that are not completely equipped with lifts or escalators. Also on the Red Line, but in the opposite direction from Termini Station from the 3 stops that I just mentioned, the Vittorio Emanuele stop also does not have escalators or lifts. Now, if you have reduced mobility, I suggest you check out the ATAC website because they have really good information on their site about the different forms of transportation and the different levels of accessibility for each one. One last small tip, you do not need your ticket to exit the metro. Just go through the turnstiles, but hang on to your ticket until you get fully out of the metro station. The bus system in Rome is pretty extensive, and I think it's useful for getting to just about anywhere you want to go in Rome. So here are my best tips for riding the bus in Rome. Until recently, you could find bus stops in Rome by looking for these tall poles with these sort of boards at the top that listed the bus numbers and all the various stops of those buses. And in fact, that's what most bus stops look like right now at the time I'm making this video for you. But recently, the city has been sprucing up the bus stops. I'm starting to see these really sophisticated new bus stops where there are places to sit, they have ticket machines, there's an electronic board showing when the next buses are coming, and they're fully sheltered. And it seems to me they're continuing to do this to bus stops around the city, so I think this is real progress. But for now, you'll find that some bus stops have these electronic boards that show you when the next buses are coming, and some of them don't. However, in just a moment, I'm going to go over the apps that you can use when you're using public transportation to buy tickets and to see where to go. And when you use one of these apps, you'll be able to see when the next bus is coming. When the bus comes, just get on and look for a seat if you want to sit down. But the most important thing you can do when you get on the bus is to validate your ticket. In the next section of this video, I'm actually going to be talking about validating your tickets because there's kind of a lot to cover. I'm also going to be talking about tap and go. Just suffice to say that the minute you get on the bus, either validate your ticket or purchase your ticket using tap and go so that you have it from the moment you're on the bus. If you cannot find a place to sit and you need to stand, please make sure you hold on to something. Please take this from me. I was on the bus recently and I wasn't holding on and I was checking my phone as we all do, and the bus driver braked really hard. He slammed on the brakes and I kind of got crushed between the people that we all went flying, and it was not a good experience. Unlike the metro, where you probably have more options for keeping your bag or backpack away from people that could reach into it. On the bus, you might find yourself squished between a lot of other people. In particular, the number 64 bus that goes from Termini to the Vatican is sort of notorious for being a pickpocket bus. I always wear a backpack when I go around Rome. For me, it's the most convenient way to get around. I like having my hands free. I like being balanced. A bag can sort of make my back go off balance. So for me, a backpack is the way to go. And knock wood, I have never been pickpocketed. Just some really common sense rules of thumb. I always put my wallet at the very bottom of my bag, so it's nowhere near, a zipper or a closure so somebody could reach in and grab it. I always make sure my bag is tightly closed. This is something very common I see. A lot of times I see people's bags and the zipper's halfway or a pocket's open because maybe they went to go get something and they forgot to close it up. So just be vigilant and make sure you tightly close all of your bag's pockets. Not everybody is going to wear a backpack. You might be wearing a crossbody bag or even just a regular bag or even no bag. A couple of other rules of thumb: keep one credit card on you and another credit card back in your apartment or hotel room. That way, just in case something happens to one of your credit cards, you have a backup. Also, don't carry tons of cash with you. You really don't need a lot of cash to get around Rome now. You can pretty much use your credit card for most things except for change to light up chapels or small change to leave tips and things like that. There's more we could talk about where pickpocketing is concerned, but I want to keep this focus on public transportation. And as far as the bus is concerned, you just want to be aware of your surroundings. If you have to stand on the bus, again, keep your bag close, either put it in front of you or if you can lean up against something. Check to see who's around you. Just be aware of who's around you and what they're doing. And if your bus has to make multiple stops before you get off, every time the bus stops, just hold on to your belongings and make sure that you're paying close attention to the people around you. Some of Rome's buses have been upgraded and they're continuing to upgrade buses. But for now, some buses have screens going across the top that show you what the next stop is, but many of them do not. So again, I'm going to talk about these apps in just a minute, but if you're using an app, you can follow the bus route on your app and it will tell you when to get off. If you're not using an app and you're not sure where to get off, you can always stand close to the driver and ask him or her to let you know when you've arrived at your stop. They should tell you. One last thing, if you're using a paper ticket and you don't need it to transfer to another bus or metro, hold on to it until you've gotten off the bus. Next, we're going to talk about tickets, which ones to buy, where to buy them, and how they work. Probably the most commonly used tickets are for single use, 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, and 1 week. As for how much these tickets cost, you can check them on the ATAC website, but I've made a handy chart for you that I'm sharing on the screen. You can also find this chart on my dedicated page about transportation in Rome on the RomeWise website. At the time I'm making this video for you, single-use tickets cost €1.50. They were supposed to go up to €2, but so far there's been no further news about this. That single-use ticket that you purchase for €1.50 is good for 100 minutes from the time you validate it and includes one transfer. Typically, whenever I need to get anywhere in Rome, I have to take two methods of transportation, either one bus to get to a certain point and then change to another bus, or perhaps a bus to a metro or vice versa. The longer use tickets are good for unlimited rides during the time period of the ticket you purchase. So to decide if you want to get one of these longer period tickets, just figure out if you're going to be using public transportation enough in that time period to make it worth your while. So for example, the 24-hour ticket is €7. So you'd have to use public transportation at least 5 times for the ticket to pay for itself. If you're staying in Rome for 3 days and you're thinking about getting the €72 pass, it's €18. So you'll have to ride public transportation at least 12 times for this ticket to pay for itself. In my opinion, if you're staying in the center of Rome, you probably don't need this pass because you're going to walk a lot between many of the sites. I think a pass like that would be useful over a 3-day period if you're staying far from the city center or if you have some walking issues that will mean that you need to use public transportation enough to make this pass worthwhile. And by the way, that transfer does include a transfer to a Cotral train or bus. If you are traveling with small children, great news, kids under the age of 10 ride all forms of public transportation for free. And when I say that children ride for free on public transportation, I'm speaking about about the ATAC and COTRAL systems. For any other forms of transportation in Rome or across Italy, you'll need to check with each system to find out up to what age children can ride for free. Now the next topic is, where do you buy these tickets? So here are the 4 places you can purchase tickets for the ATAC system, the tram, bus, or metro system in Rome. You can purchase ATAC tickets from the following places. Inside of every metro station and train station in Rome, you'll find machines where you can purchase paper tickets. You can also purchase paper tickets from most newspaper kiosks and tobacco shops that are called tabacchi. I said most newspaper kiosks and tabacchi because some of these are opting not to carry paper tickets anymore. Maybe they're just getting fewer sales and they're not finding it worth it. Fewer people are using paper tickets now that we can use electronic payment to ride the bus and metro, which I'm about to tell you about next. The next 2 ways to get tickets for using Rome's public transportation are by using an app like Moonigo or by using Tap and Go. I think the app is a great idea for those of us who live here like me. I use Moonigo. I pre-purchase a bunch of tickets. I have them in my app, and anytime I board any form of public transportation, I get out the app, I pull up a ticket, I validate it, and then I'm good to go. But as a tourist visiting Rome for just a few days or even a few weeks, you may not want to download an app for that and enter your credit card details, etc., when it's so easy to use Tap and Go. Tap and Go is pretty much what it sounds like. You just tap a little machine with your credit card or with your smartphone or watch, and you've got an electronic ticket and you're good to go. Tap and Go machines have been installed in pretty much every bus and tram in Rome and in every metro station. If you plan to ride the metro and you want to use Tap and Go, make sure to check all of the different turnstiles because usually only 1 or 2 of them have Tap and Go installed. Because this is such an easy way to use Rome's public transportation system, I'm going to recommend that you use Tap and Go as your method of payment unless you want more than just a single-use ticket. Of course, this doesn't apply to you if you're a person who doesn't like to carry credit cards around, or if you don't have a smart device like a phone or a watch with some kind of a payment system installed. Tickets cost the same whether you purchase paper tickets, use an app, or use Tap and Go. That being said, even though I use the app and I sometimes use Tap and Go, I always carry with me a few paper tickets because you never know if these machines might be broken or there's some other reason why I can't validate my ticket. So it's always good to have a backup. Like the other single-use tickets you purchase with Tap and Go are also good for 100 minutes from the time you purchase them. But because you don't have a physical or even an electronic ticket to look at, you're just going to have to keep track of when that 100 minutes will expire. If you need to change to the metro with a Tap and Go ticket and you have no physical ticket, just ask somebody at the ticket booth of the metro and explain that you have a Tap and Go ticket and you can show them your credit card and they'll let you through. I've told you where to buy tickets, but now I have to tell you the next very important step, which is validating them. Validating your ticket merely puts a time and date stamp on it because that sets the time from which your ticket begins and lets any inspector or machine know when your ticket will end. Let's say you get a 48-hour ticket. As soon as you validate that ticket, your ticket is then good for 48 hours from that moment that you validated it. And as I mentioned, the single-use tickets are good for 100 minutes, so the moment you validate your ticket, you have 100 minutes to use it and to use your one transfer if you need it. So how do you validate these tickets? For paper tickets, whether you ride the bus, tram, or metro, there's going to be a machine where you insert the ticket, it'll get a time and date stamp on it, and then the ticket will pop back out, and then you take the ticket and keep it until you're done riding whatever form of public transportation you're riding. If you ride the metro, you have no choice but to validate your ticket because you can't get through the turnstile without putting your ticket through the ticket validator first. But with the bus or tram, it's the honor system, and it's up to you to make sure you validate your ticket. When you board a bus or tram in Rome, you're probably going to notice that most of the people do not validate their ticket. Do not, under any circumstances, let this lull you into thinking, oh, cool, I got to ride this bus for free. Many of those commuters either have an app like I do, or they have a monthly pass, because a lot of us who live here, if you ride public transportation enough, you might wind up with a monthly or even yearly pass, something that really doesn't apply to a tourist. So let me repeat. As soon as you get on a bus or tram, the first thing you have to do is validate your ticket. Once in a while, it could happen that you board a bus or tram and there is no way to validate your ticket. Either there's no tap and go or the machines to validate tickets are all out of order. This could happen. If the tap and go is missing or out of order, this is why I say to have paper tickets with you. But if the ticket validating machines are themselves out of order, one thing you can do is to write on the ticket the time and date. And that should appease an inspector if they ask to see your ticket. And you can explain that the machines are all out of order and in good faith, you wrote the date and time on your ticket. What about electronic tickets and tap and go? How do you validate those? If you decide to use an app like I do, you still have to validate your tickets. When I ride the bus, I just open up my app, I pull up a ticket that hasn't been used yet, and I tap validate, and it validates it for me, and it creates a QR code. So if a ticket inspector asks to see my ticket, I just show them the QR code, and they can read it and see that it's valid. Tap and go works a little bit differently. With tap and go, you don't actually get a ticket. You tap the little machine, and your credit card will be charged, and that's it. By paying for a ticket with tap and go, you basically buy the ticket and validate it all at the same time. So what happens if a ticket inspector asks to see your ticket and you've paid with tap and go? All you have to do is show the credit card you used to buy your ticket, and that is it. The inspector will be able to see it and read that you have a current ticket paid for with that credit card, and you're all set. But here is the kicker with tap and go, and this is absolutely crucial. When you use tap and go to buy a ticket to ride public transportation, you must use a separate credit card for each person in your group. So you cannot use the same credit card to buy more than one ticket with tap and go. If there are 3 of you riding the bus and all 3 of you want to use tap and go, each person needs to pay separately. I don't know the reason for this, it's just the way it is. What about when you have tickets that are good for more than a single use? How do you validate those? For any ticket that's good for more than a single use, you just validate it the first time you use it, and then you don't have to validate it anymore after that. That first validation sets the start date and time of the ticket, and then it's good for as long as you purchased it for. Just make sure you have it with you whenever you ride public transportation. On the buses and trams, you'll just need it handy in case an inspector asks to see it. And for the metro, you just put it into the little machine, it'll read that the ticket is valid, it'll pop it back out, you pick it up, and keep going. Now that you know what the different types of tickets are, where to purchase them, and how to validate them, you probably want to know how you can figure out how to get from point A to point B using public transportation. Well, you could try using the ATAC website in English. They do have a route calculator on their website showing you the buses, metros, etc. I just don't think it's that easy to use. And in my opinion, it's much easier to use an app on your phone or tablet. If you have a smartphone or tablet, you probably have a Maps app. Both Apple Maps and Google Maps are connected to Rome's ATAC system. So all you have to do is open up one of these Maps apps and ask it for directions. Once the directions pop up on your phone or tablet, just look for the little icons that indicate the mode of transportation you'll use to get between those 2 points. So just tap that little bus or tram icon and you'll see all of the options for using public transportation for getting between these 2 points. Once you choose the method for how you want to go to where you're going, you can tap Start. When you activate these routes using public transportation, the app should show you when the next bus is expected to arrive. There's an app that a lot of us in Rome use. It's called Move It. I like this app because it's pretty much dedicated to public transportation and it is tied to the ATAC system, of course. You could download Move It before you come and test it out between Google Maps or Apple Maps and Move It and see which of these you like most. The important thing is to use one of these apps for figuring out where you want to go and which bus to take and how much time you have to wait for the next bus to arrive. Speaking about all of these apps, Make sure you have a data plan before you come to Rome. Don't count on there being Wi-Fi readily available, so you should already have a plan for being able to use data when you're here in Rome. I've used with Holofly and Airalo, and I think they're both good. I'm linking to them in the description below, so you can try one of those. Finally, you could just buy a throwaway or pay-as-you-go European SIM card, use it while you're here, and then toss it when you're done. If I were you and I wanted to use a temporary European SIM card, I would order one in advance so that as soon as you land, you can open up your phone and have data immediately. Alternatively, you could come into Rome and then stop at one of the shops like Tim or Vodafone and get a card while you're here, but that means wasting time on your vacation, and it also means not having data the minute you land. As I mentioned, I was going to tell you the number one thing that you need to know to make riding public transportation in Rome stress-free. And here it is. I've already told you this, but nothing is more important than validating your ticket. Yes, of course, I know you're worried about pickpockets, and I've given you some hints to be safe from pickpockets, but you're actually so much more likely to get a fine for not having a validated ticket than you are to be pickpocketed. I ride the bus and metro probably several times a week, and I would say that more than 50% of the time on the bus, the inspectors come on and ask to see people's tickets. And without fail, every single time I see these inspectors get on the bus, they fine somebody. Trust me, they have zero sympathy for, I'm a tourist, I didn't know, I didn't understand, I thought that if I purchased it, that was enough. No excuses will work. If you do not have a valid ticket, you will be fined. And the way this works is that they're going to ask you for your ID, they're going to take the information, and you're going to have to pay them on the spot. And it's about 50 or 60 euros. And if you cannot pay on the spot, they will give you the opportunity to pay later. But then it's going to be 2 to 3 times the amount. This has never happened to me, but I have seen it happen to other people, and I'm mortified for them. I can tell that some people are genuinely scared. They are upset because it's a lot of money. So do not let this happen to you. It's so simple. The tickets are inexpensive. Make sure you have a ticket and make sure to validate it. And that will just make riding public transportation go so much more smoothly for you. I know public transportation is not for everyone, and I definitely am a big believer in walking, so do that if you want to. But if you want to know how to take taxis in Rome and how to avoid getting ripped off by taxi drivers, don't miss my video right here.